Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Star Wars Alliance, your home on the Geek Ultimate Alliance podcast network for any and all things Star Wars. I'm your host, as always, Katie. And with me, as per the usual, even though the technical wizards of the universe did not want us to talk about this, apparently, it's Clay. Clay, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Let's hope whatever happened is only going to happen then and not in the middle of the episode like it did last week.
Yep.
Speaking of last week, I can't remember if I cut that out or not. And I don't usually listen back to our episodes because I don't like to listen to myself talk. So, if anybody would like to, harp on how bad my editing skills are, you can totally do that and let me know. But we're not here alone.
Yes, we've got contributor to But Why Though, the one and only Adrian himself. Adrian, how are you doing?
Clay asked me this when we started, and I'm kind of torn because I'm currently playing Star Wars Outlaws for content for But Why Though, but I'm also very upset the more as time goes on for the Acolyte. But other than Star Wars stuff being crazy, everything's pretty good.
Yay, that's really good. All right, y'all. But yes, if you have seen the title, The Acolyte was in fact canceled. The first of its kind for Disney Plus. But we're here to talk about that. We're here to talk about Edge of Balance Volume 3 today. So buckle your seatbelts because I know for a fact the disclaimer here is that we are all upset by the Acolyte being canceled, point blank. So if you're here to talk about why you're happy the Acolyte has been canceled, maybe this isn't the show for you. I just want to let you know that immediately, and trolls will be blocked. So we've got that disclaimer out of the way. Clay, why don't you walk us into this?
Yeah. By the way, I'm going to be referencing something that not a whole lot of people are going to know because it is a inside joke with the Geekverse and GUA crew. But I got a notification on my phone from, I believe it was, oh gosh, maybe Deadline, maybe Hollywood Reporter. I can't remember who it was. I think it was, in fact, Deadline on Twitter. And the first thing I saw was breaking Acolyte, and my heart immediately sank to my gut. I opened the notification, saw that it was canceled, and I was going to share it to our GUA chat, and then I saw that Travis had already shared it, and I was like, I'm not getting flash memed today, so I am not going to share it. Flash memed is we continuously harp on each other for double posting news all over our chat, and we use the CW Flash GIF as a meme to one another, like, hey, you need to be faster next time if you want to post or share. So that's what that means. But yeah, immediately after the news broke, there was so much coming in to Twitter as far as fans, trolls, other news sites putting their opinions on. Acolyte was trending in 4 different categories on my space of Twitter. So, MySpace, Twitter. Sorry, had to follow that rabbit. So I know that there is a lot of feedback from this news. I am very angry at this information and this breaking news. To the point where, I immediately start to go towards the absolute negative, which is probably not healthy for me. But I'm like, okay, why would they do this? Of course, the biggest yelling into the void for a lot of us fans, and I know, Adrian, you added your 2 cents into this, and I do genuinely believe there is some truth to this. Others may believe it's not. But the trolls won. The negativity of the review bombing before episodes aired, the hate over so many different aspects of the show, not only via Star Wars content, but the subject matter, the actors, everything, influence this decision. I don't care what argument you have, it influenced the decision. It may not be the final decision maker, but it did influence it. And I don't think that's okay. That's my opinion. But yeah, I immediately went to the negative and I was like, oh, it's just so happens that, the only Star Wars related content to have the official canceled title to it is probably one of the most diverse shows, because it heavily had not only humanoid characters in there, but alien species and all of these other things. And I immediately didn't like that. People of color, of course, being a big importance to this project as well. But yeah,
People of color, but also sexually different, like LGBTQ members as well.
Exactly.
Like,
yeah,
the one show that has the majority cast in that direction, and you're gonna slap the canceled tag on it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a great look.
No, it's not. And I said on Twitter, and again, people can say that I'm being hyperbolic or whatever, but like, I tweeted out, the Disney executives can now use the excuse of viewing numbers to say, oh, it's canceled. But everything else is still out there, to show proof of that may not be the only reason why.
Yeah. Adrian, tell us your thoughts.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's people can say whatever they can blame the viewing numbers, they can blame the writing, they can blame whatever. But I think at the end of the day, anyone who thinks that the Acolyte is deserving of an 18% or 14% when it started on Rotten Tomatoes is just wrong. I think there's just no way. Think of like the worst movie you've ever seen, and this or like the worst show you've ever seen, and like this is on par with that, regardless of like your opinions on like the length of the episodes, the pacing, those things that I think are legitimate concerns. It was overhated from the start. 3 times as many reviews as The Mandalorian before episode 3 is over with. Hundreds of reviews each week before the episodes even air, when we all know that they weren't even doing screeners after episode 4. So how are these people writing reviews and things like that? So it's definitely an executive. I think it's just an executive decision, an easy executive decision to can this and put money somewhere else, when there was obviously a strong group in the fandom who was enjoying the show, or at the very least liked it enough to see, okay, well, maybe let's see where this is going. Maybe didn't love it, but at least liked it enough to be like, okay, let's see. Lightsaber fights were cool. There's good things to say, and you don't have good things to say even if it's just lightsaber fights. Even for all of like these people who hated on it for 2 months straight, still like the lightsaber fights. That's on an 18%, 14% Rotten Tomatoes show for me. That's clear victim of the review bombing and just all this spineless, cowardice executive behavior to point to that. I know all the articles pointed to like viewership numbers and ratings. Okay, well, ratings non-factor for me because you have all of these reviews coming in for this show that everybody hated, that's more hated than loved than 3 seasons of The Mandalorian. Like, does that make any sense to anybody? And to say that like it's a business decision, Disney needs to save money. The $163 billion company can't make content that was clearly enjoyed by a portion of the fandom to the point where they're sending out merchandise and all of these things on Twitter and doing all and bringing in the actors to to give their love to the fans, like with Yord after the fact, or bringing in Manny on D23 to bring him on stage to do all of these things. It feels like an incredibly just selfish and just money hungry decision. And then to take all the stuff off the online store as well, like, go buy a physical DVD of this, because I feel like they're about to scrub it. I feel like they're about to scrub it because of the hate that it got, man. And it just feels really like have we learned nothing from the prequels? Have we learned nothing from the Obi-Wan show? Have we learned nothing from like any of these things? Like, why are we making them happy? Like, why are we making like the worst parts of the fandom happy? And if you say money, then like, why are you even making art, or like, why are you even doing this in the first place? Just don't make anything new then. Just stop doing it, because what else are we doing? We can't go to a new era. Apparently, we can't have a predominantly person of color cast with multiple, because if honestly that wasn't even like a part of the thing. And my thing, like, if you see lesbians on screen and you're like, oh, woke agenda, then you shouldn't have been watching this in the first place, or you just need to like go back to school. It just makes me very angry. Just all this makes me very angry that we're here, and that they won, and that people are happy about it. You're happy people don't have jobs. You're happy that like people might be sad. Like why would that make you happy? It's just weirdo behavior to me. And it sucks that even now, like, Amandla Stallenberg is still getting hate. We're still getting hate after the fact, going back to her old Instagram photos just to be like, ha ha ha. Like, it's just weirdo behavior. It's weirdo behavior, chronically online behavior, and it makes it really hard to be excited for anything else that's coming up. Makes it hard to be excited for Skeleton Crew. Makes it hard for me to even be excited about Star Wars Outlaws. I don't even think I'm going to be talking about with people online, because people are going to hate it. For a lot of the same reasons they're going to hate, they hated the Acolyte, and a lot of the same reasons why they hated Ahsoka. The only difference is that those things were already approved for season 2 and went through, and so that's the only reason why it's like it feels like it's absolved from the conversation. And I had people on TikTok talking about like, oh, Andor got approved for season 2 because it had a good story. No, Andor got approved for season 2 and was already in pre-production, just the same way that the Acolyte was reportedly now in pre-production in February. But what's the two biggest difference between those two shows? One got review bombed and has a much lower rating because people hated it for bigoted reasons, and the other one is in the Skywalker saga, and that's sacred and will just stay in that 67-year time period forever.
Yeah, the idea that this studio, because I've been saying it for a while, even when it boils down to like Marvel stuff with like the Eternals not pushing forward with the second movie, studios executives are chickens. Point blank, they're chickens. And in today's day and age, you can justify it by saying, well, it didn't trend daily. Like, no, nothing's ever going to trend daily. Not when you're competing with a bunch of different streamers. Plus, there's still cable TV out there. Like, lots of different stuff is going to trend. Like, we said this with the Book of Boba Fett, and I'm not saying this with the Acolyte, because I consider the Acolyte leaps and bounds above Book of Boba Fett. But not 100%. Every show has to be good. Like, or not every show has to be perfect. Not every show has to be great. Like, I thought it was great, but if you didn't think it was great, that's okay. Like, if you just thought it was good, that's fine. But like, the idea that studios have to put out perfection 100% of the time is bullshit. It's absolute bullshit. There's no need for it. And like y'all have talked about already, the diversity with this show, like, is like a big factor to me, I think, and a lot of people like hating it, but then like that's why a lot of people hated it. It didn't match their boyhood idea of Star Wars. So let's go ahead and just drop the hammer and like let's just cancel it. Like, this show was diverse and it was sexy. It was not standard Star Wars. It hit like that like romanticy vibe with it. Like, I'm telling you, like, from what I've seen of Book Talk and Bookstagram, they're all behind the times by like 6 months. But if this show had been marketed towards Book Talk and Bookstagram, this would have picked up steam. Like,
I
people
have
would
friends who
loved it.
don't watch Star Wars saw me post, memes of the, of the scenes, and they're like, okay, I need to watch it now, and then went and watched it. Like, so where's like this thing can't bring in new fans when you can you have them,
Yeah.
Why are we appeasing these boy people? And I'll say, and I'll just straight up say that it's like man child, because I post on Instagram almost every day, almost every day during this time, and 99.9, I don't even think, unless like they're hiding behind like a picture, almost all of them were dudes saying the same recycled
same thing was
garbage.
with your TikTok, Adrian. Like
Yeah.
the comments on there were a majority men, and my big thing is where Katie went with her points of view. I told a friend of mine at work today, because he's only seen, I think, 1 or 2 episodes, and he was like, "Hey, it's not really grabbing my attention," but he's a Star Wars fan. He loves Clone Wars. I was like, the overall concept of the show, I really like the concept and the ideas. I like how it ended. Maybe you will only watch 2 episodes every other week or whatever, but I encourage you to finish it. And I told him today, I was like, hey, you may not have a chance to watch the rest of it if this indeed happens. It got canceled, and I told him all the drama and stuff. And I told him the idea that every single show, just like Katie said, has to produce millions, if not billions of views and dollars, studios find it a waste of time. I think that is crap, because the conversation that me and Katie have been having for several weeks now is it is okay to be just okay, because there are so many different aspects of opinions out there. It's very rare that you're going to have the epitome of, perfection in every single project. Adrian, you brought up Andor. Travis Snell, a part of Geekverse and the GUA, told us, hey, Andor, and I've seen this also being flooded through Twitter as well. Andor was one of those projects that was like, hey, this is going to be a premiere show on Disney Plus. It was a part of that wave in 2020 that was like, hey, we're pushing all of this content on our brand new streaming service, really just pushing all of the content out there, because again, a lot of people were thinking, hey, movies are in danger, TV is the way to go. Andor, if you guys remember, 2 episodes in, people were like, oh, viewership is not great. You guys really need to, like, word of mouth, tell your parents, tell your grandparents, And then halfway through it, we were saying, oh, the first 3 episodes of Andor are coming out on ABC Family or whatever it's called now. Right? So it was being pushed to other channels. And I even think FX at one point held the first 2 episodes. So again, there's like this idea of like, oh, well, Gilroy saved Rogue One back in the day, so he kind of got his chance to keep, Andor. Well, Katie reminded us in the GUA, Andor got announced with 5 seasons. And now I think Andor season 2 is going to be the end.
They said today that Andor season 2 will end with the beginning of Rogue One for Cassian.
So
So what are we even doing? Like, what
Yeah.
are we even, like? Look, I love Andor, but like, what are we doing? Like, we're just doing a year before Andor, or like a year before Rogue One? Like, that's the stories that were like, oh, I can't wait. Like, you don't want to go see other stuff, man. I love Andor, but the more that like the strays that Ahsoka and Acolyte get because they held Andor as like I think because of Andy Serkis's episode more than anything, it feels like
Mhm.
as because what is it saying? Like, what is the story saying that the original trilogy doesn't? Or like I just don't understand like why we're so, or like why the fandom is so like, oh, it should have been as good as Andor. I'm like, good as Andor how? How is it as, or like what makes Andor so much better that it was like gritty? Do people's getting necks chopped in the Acolyte because it focused on other characters. You have characters that no one had ever heard of before in this other thing. Oh man, it's just so frustrating. It's just so frustrating, and especially because like you said, Katie, it was going to be longer, and then they cut it, but now we're just like, oh, we're happy with season 2. We're happy that that's all we're getting, and it's just such a weird thing to be happy that we're only going to get 2 seasons.
S. Bob says, wasn't it Tony Gilroy's choice to make it 2 seasons instead of 5? It came out like that, S. Bob's, but it definitely seemed like it was a higher up decision with the quote that he said.
And it was
At least
all of a sudden as well when the announcement came, because it was like, well, what happened to the 5 seasons? Like, you don't just announce something as 5 seasons and be like, maybe we can do it in 2. Especially in a world that wants content. I feel like we as a people, in trying to grasp entertainment and everything else, we look at Netflix and we're like, oh, the godfather of streaming, and we saw the amount of stuff that they've pushed, and we've seen them axe things all the time. They are a studio that has just only in the most recent years of like 5 years have started to pick up their own content, and even that is ending. Whereas this is Disney. Some may say like marketing king genius Disney, and the decisions they make with some of the most iconic IPs, such as Lucasfilm, I can't comprehend sometimes how these decisions are made with such a popular IP as this. All in the Game says, what are the odds of Acolyte being canceled if Filoni had been the showrunner as opposed to Headland?
I appreciate this question because I wanted to actually bring this up all in the game.
Yeah, because this is a part of the conversation as well that we had in the GUA. So, Katie, why don't you go ahead and push that forward?
Yeah, so if Filoni, for those of y'all listening who don't know, is the creative director of Lucasfilm. He is basically the Kevin Feige of Lucasfilm. And I did not like that decision when it was made. I think Filoni tells pretty good stories, but all of his stories seem to be repetitive, even going back to Clone Wars when you look at some of the episodes that he did there. So for me, having him be the creative director, the Feige of Star Wars, was a bad decision up front. And now he's improved some of it in Mandalorian and Ahsoka. Like, I can see that. I totally give it that. But I just don't think any one person can manage a timeline like Star Wars has. It is point blank impossible to do when you have 67 years for the Skywalker saga alone, and then you want to go 25,000 years that way, and then even further past the Skywalker saga that way. So to me, it just didn't make any sense. To me, Filoni and Favreau seem to be the kings right now. It's like Snell said, if it's Dave's show, it gets 3 seasons, a movie, and 15 animated shows. I'm not saying like yes, but I'm not saying no, because to me, this is what Filoni's going to make what he wants to make. And that was clear with Tales of the Jedi and Tales of the Empire. Point blank.
Yeah, I think he's good at like bringing in people to make a good show. I think that's why like some of my favorite episodes of The Mandalorian aren't directed by Dave Filoni or written by Dave Filoni. They're by the other people that he's bringing in. So which makes it even more annoying for me personally that this gets like Leslie Heslin gets so much hate when their golden boy Dave Filoni was 100% behind her and the story that they were telling in this show. So if you're, the new big wig of the franchise who's going to be like leading us is okay with that story, then by their own logic, they should be okay with what story's being told as the Star Wars canon story. This is the guy who was mentored by your other fave, George Lucas. So it's like the Yoda lineage of Jedi masters type thing, at least for me. And Dave Filoni's really good about like letting people make the stories that they want to make. And I think that she made the story she wanted to make. And they loved it. People were supportive. They were in pre-production in February. They were looking for directors. They were doing all of these things. But these dudes just want to quote stuff from other movies and hang on the fact that one actor missaid a thing, and this is why it's trash, and this is why it's that. And Kiadi Mundi, like you ever gave a shit about Kiadi Mundi in the first place. It's just bigotry, man. I think it's just straight up, flat out bigotry. If your arguments for why the show isn't good is because of Leslie Headland and the actors not knowing Star Wars, that is what Star Wars Theory told you to say, and that's not what was actually there.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of people, because even in our GUA chat, they were saying, writing wasn't great. This wasn't a, bang of a kickoff show or whatever. Again, it comes down to an opinion. I'm totally fine with people being subjective about these things. That's totally
There's perfectly legitimate critiques about this show.
Exactly.
We're not calling out any of those.
We had critiques about the show.
Yeah.
And when it comes to the writing, I watched a Star Wars show that is on par with a Star Wars movie that I have
has
on
has
par,
all the same themes of the Clone Wars, which
on par
everybody
with
loves.
the video games that I have played. So it is so frustrating to see this go on and on and on after every single project. I immediately after this, I did 3 consecutive tweets. My first one is, I will not feed it into the excuse of everyone else that everyone else is giving as far as like the budget, the views and all of this as. And I said, if I didn't have a 1-year-old right now, I probably wouldn't have Disney Plus right now after this decision, because everything that I am enjoying is always in a, do we really need it? Maybe that can get kicked off or whatever. And then I said, I was saving money for Star Wars Outlaws. Really tempted to go somewhere else with my money now. Like, again, Adrian, like you had said, featured in our thumbnail, by the way, your tweet was, after the Acolyte cancellation, how is anyone supposed to be excited for Outlaws, Skeleton Crew, etc., when we know now more than ever that grifters know their voices matter more than the fans who actually enjoy the content of this universe?
And that was my argument as well. Like, you can say all day long, well, Star Wars has canceled all kinds of things. Rian Johnson's trilogy, Taika Waititi's film, X, Y, Z, all day long. I have remained a positive person. I'm like, it might happen one day. Like, it is what it is.
We keep hearing the one thing that I think Lucasfilm is really good, and I think it's more Disney than Lucasfilm is really good at doing when it comes to marketing and feeding into the fan base that they know they need as far as money goes. And I get it. The GA is a large sum of that money because fans are not always going to produce the amount of money that they quote unquote need for these types of things. But the fact that every once in a while they'll be like, hey, there's still talks of this. We just got that with Patty Jenkins, maybe a couple months ago, about her
Rogue Squadron
movie. It's just like, that is dead in my mind after this.
That's basically where I'm at too. Is like, this turned me into a Star Wars cynic. I'm still gonna be a positive fan, and I'm gonna watch Skeleton Crew, but like, this turned me into an absolute cynic. Matt this morning was like, "How you doing?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm still upset." And he was like, "I don't think I've ever seen you this upset about anything on TV or a movie." And I'm like, "Yep." It's because I felt seen. Like, and don't get me wrong, I've like had other times with like Bo-Katan coming into The Mandalorian, for instance, getting to see Ahsoka in live action. Really cool stuff. This made me feel seen as a Star Wars fan. I loved this story. It was like everything to me. Like, this is like, I love Fourth Wing. Like, Akatar has been really good. Like, this made me feel seen as a female Star Wars fan. And like I said, there's been other times, but like, to have a whole show dedicated to me as a Star Wars fan, that was awesome. Point blank. And now I'm just really sad about it.
Yeah, and it's not even like you can, and now it's not even like you can like go to the Disney store and like buy merch from your favorite characters because it's fucking gone. Like, what are we doing? What, who's making these decisions? I just wish that like they would just be upfront and like someone would just take responsibility for what's going on, because it's just so frustrating that like every day more stuff is getting taken away from the show because of everything that happened, despite like all of the social media push that happened with this in like the Twitter
This was
space.
100% the best marketing campaign that Star Wars has had. And
yeah, I was so sad that I didn't get nothing from the Star Wars Twitter people. You know, I would have loved some fucking tissues or something. I would have loved something now, and you can't even go get it because they're scrubbing it. Why? Like, why? What's the like? What is the reason for this? It feels like they're scrubbing to go push more movies back, to go push more money back to the movies. And if like this was canceled so that like Grogu and the Mandalorian movie can get more money, fuck me. Like, what? Like, why are we even? Don't even stop making stuff. Just stop making it.
And I wanted to bring that up because that is a huge worry in the fan base right now. I think it was Daniel RPK says Lando is now a film. Rangers of the New Republic was canceled. Andor will end in season 2. No Mando season 4. No Boba Fett season 2. No Acolyte season 2. Skeleton Crew is only a limited series. Ahsoka is only ongoing Star Wars show currently. No other live action series has been announced for development. And with the merchandise going away, people are now afraid that this is going to be a Willow situation where Willow was different from Batgirl at WB. Batgirl never got to see the light of day. Willow was a show that has existed, premiered on Disney Plus, and now is nowhere to be seen. And they wrote it off as a tax write-off. People are worried that this is going to be the exact same thing with the Acolyte. This is not okay. Trying to basically erase a project from existence when this is people's livelihood, as well as our piece of the fandom being joyful that it exists. But people spent time out of their lives to create this content, and you're just gonna be like, well, it's fine because I can write it off and get more money at the end of the year.
I'm terrified of that. If that happens, that will be the trigger point, and I'll cancel Disney Plus. I won't be watching Skeleton Crew as much as I want to. I won't be watching Skeleton Crew.
Yar, matey. I'm going back.
But I'm not PRing it. I'm not PRing it. I'm not going to talk about it for Disney. Not that we have that many listeners, but Like,
Yeah.
I'm not PRing
and
it.
that's the thing, Adrian. Like in my mind, I am currently thinking I'm gonna have to like. It has been a long while since I have actually pirated content, and I'll say it right here live on YouTube. I have in the past, but if you're going to steal my money and you say, "Hey, your money doesn't count," fine, my money doesn't count, so I'm not going to give it to you, and that's just how it is.
Yeah,
I'm at that same point right now too, because if this gets a physical release, I'm snatching it up. I haven't gotten Mando or Andor yet, because those shows, I trust that Mando is going to stick around on Disney Plus for a little bit, and those physical releases were expensive. But if the Acolyte gets a physical release, I'm picking it up immediately. Like, it's happening. Like, I've never pirated anything in my life, but I will do that if it has to be done. Like,
yeah. Well, you know, they're hurting. They're the $160 billion company. They're hurting right now. You know, I gotta make. If they're hurting, I'm hurting too. I gotta make cuts. Sorry. So I gotta, I gotta do what's best for me and mine's. If that's the mentality you're going with.
Yeah, and you can tell me all day long that there was a budget issue, and I understand. We understand, like, oh, if you break it down to pure this and that, like, fine, whatever. Budget was 180 million. Viewership was not on par with other things that have coming out, but it also came out in the midst of House of the Dragon and The Boys. Let's just keep that in mind, because that's important. It was a big summer for television content. And the fact of the matter is that there was long-term investment potential with the Acolyte. Yeah. And you sent it out the window. I'm praying and hoping that Tessa and Justina's books still get made. Justina sounded positive yesterday. But I'm hoping.
I know that we're all book people here, and you know, I talked to both of them at San Diego Comic-Con, but I don't think they have the same kind of vested interest in this fight. So Justina's video to me rang hollow, because she can be like, oh well, you know, it's going to be okay, because she is writing another book, and she hasn't even seen the show. Like I couldn't even ask her about the show, about Vernestra Rowe, the character she created, because she hasn't even seen the show. So for me, like, I don't care about what anyone says who hasn't seen the show, because her words were so infuriating to me as someone who sat in front of her and Tessa, and they both told me to my face that they didn't watch it, and we had nothing to really talk about, because we can't talk about your book that's not out yet, because you don't know. So how are you even writing these stories if you haven't even seen the thing? It's just so confusing. It's so confusing. What? And then why even give them books? If you were like worried that this was going to happen? It just makes no sense to me.
Devil's advocate. They may want to put their own spin on the characters without having the show influence what happens.
Great, but then don't tell me, oh, it'll be okay, when you didn't experience what we experienced and like went through what we went through. Like it's like the imagine to me. Look, might be a little bit dramatic, but it was like the imagine all the fucking people thing that all the celebrities did. Like you weren't in this fight. You weren't in this fight. You didn't have the hate. You didn't have all of these things that all these other actors had. You didn't have that, because no one knew who Vernestra Rowe is. There isn't the same kind of audience and droves of people going to the High Republic and reading these stories. I had to tell people that Vernestra Rowe was from the High Republic, and like these are the books that she was in, because they just thought, oh, I don't know who these people are. Like, oh, Ki-Adi-Mundi. You know what I mean? So for me, I'm just like, why'd you even say anything? Because you just don't know. And I don't even know if she's been open that she hasn't seen it, but like it took me a Mac.
I don't think it would be very
saying
smart.
That was the first time I'd heard that.
I don't think it would be very smart if she did, you know, decide to say, hey, by the way, I've never seen the show, but I created the characters, and like,
and you know, and I never saw them on screen. So, you know, she doesn't care. Not that she doesn't care, but like she doesn't. it's not, it didn't hit her as hard as it say it's going to hit, Manny, who found out like probably didn't find out on his birthday. He might have known before that, but like to have all that news come out on his birthday when he was just at D3
on his birthday is the worst.
When he was just at D3, not begging, but like pleading with people to like, let us do this again.
Continue the story. Yeah.
Like those are like the people that I want to hear like, hey, let's relax. Or like when Ewan McGregor came out in support of Reva's, I forgot.
Gosh, I can't remember her name.
Looking it up right now because I just had a brain fart.
Yeah, I mean, because it's like a list of actors at this point, right? Who are just like getting attacked over and over and over again. So it's hard for me to be like, oh, it'll be
Moses
okay.
Ingram.
Yeah, Moses Ingram. Like it's hard for me to be like, oh, it'll be okay. Don't worry about it, when they're still making content and they're still seeing these stories come, and now we have a whole wide thing of missed opportunity. Because I don't know if we'll ever go back to the High Republic in live action. And that to me is so sad because this era is so dope. Even this in-between era that we were getting, so dope because we're already seeing the subtle changes between that era and the prequel trilogy era. And it's just rough that we're not getting it just because of all these things. And it just don't piss on me and tell me it's raining. It sucks. It sucks really, really bad. And we should be angry about it if we enjoy the show.
I want to ask you both a question. Katie, I know that you saw this tweet of mine, but it's rightfully, people's decision to start these hashtags and everything else. And I've seen Save the Acolyte, Renew the Acolyte, famously made for things like Release the Snyder Cut and Renew Lucifer, Save Lucifer. These two projects were saved in a matter of speaking. Snyder Cut being finally released, Lucifer being able to continue on Netflix. And so I have to ask you guys, in my ballpark, I got burnt out with Justice League. I did my part. I pushed all of that. Save Daredevil as well on the game. Also said that is very true.
Yeah.
And I got the Snyder Cut, and then I backed off. I didn't do anything else.
Like a normal person, Clay, because that's normal person behavior.
Exactly.
If you don't like it, you just go about your day.
And then there's still people trying to help David Ayer and everything else. But is it worth the fight to try and renew and get these hashtags trending and pushing for a Acolyte revival? Adrian, what do you think?
I would say so if they didn't pull all the merchandise off the store today. I think where I would go, because I think the Renew the Acolyte hashtag was great. People showing their love, trending multiple days, multiple weeks, after. Save the Acolyte might get that same treatment if enough people, but why do we have to save it? Why is the onus on us to do those things? I had someone on TikTok yesterday tell me that when I was telling them about the review bombing, his answer was, well, you should have reviewed it harder. More of you should have reviewed the show to offset the average. Like what universe?
You're never going to outpace the mob.
Yeah, the mob that didn't even see it. How was this the least viewed show with the most reviews? Does anyone not do the executives not understand what that is? I think they do. So I don't think that for the Acolyte specifically, a save thing will work, because not enough of the middle-aged white man watched this show enough. If enough middle-aged white man did it and bitched and complained as much to get the slightly above better Snyder Cut of the Justice League, then yes. But the difference is, Clay and Katie, is that we're normal people. So when we don't like something, we don't bitch about it for days. We don't go into people's comments to say, oh, this was shit. When I didn't like The Last Jedi, I didn't go into Ryan Johnson's Instagram to be like, oh, you're terrible, because it's just not normal behavior. And you're so right, Clay. This wasn't. I'll retract my tweet, because this they've always known that they can just bitch and get what they want. They've always known because they can with the Snyder Cut, with Lucifer, or not. I would not say so much Lucifer because I don't think the crowd is as bad, but like Renew the Snyder Cut definitely is in that where you complain enough, you complain, and then they eventually give you what you want, and then you hope that it works out for you financially, I guess. But if you have all these people who are clamoring for it and renew the Acolyte and all these things, and you still cancel it, I don't think they cared enough. I don't think it ever had a shot. I think it was doomed to fail from the start, and I'm surprised that they didn't do more to combat their own shit getting review bombed, or doing something like you said, putting the show on TV for the first maybe four episodes. I think that's good. The first 4 episodes, I think, good enough of a hook to get people into it. If you do that,
I
all
believe
back to back.
it was 4 and 5 that are the double episodes, right? That were filmed together.
Yeah. So
if 4 has a big enough cliffhanger, trust me.
To get people
to
back
be like,
into
hey,
it.
let's go watch the rest of them.
But they didn't try enough, despite all of these hashtags. It's just really, I don't think so. I don't think it's going to matter.
Yeah. And I've seen people talk about, what's going to happen to the canon timeline if the Acolyte disappears. I don't want to talk about that. We're not going to wish that into existence. If it happens, we can talk about it later. I'm not going to talk about that right now. Point blank, I don't want to wish that into existence.
I hope if it doesn't get renewed, I hope they never touch Plagueis. I hope they never touch Plagueis, and then these motherfuckers are just stuck with their one book forever that they hold like the Holy Bible, so they don't get it, because I don't think they deserve it. I don't think they deserve it. They don't deserve it.
It's the same thing as Bane, right? Bane was the one character people were clamoring about and wanting. I always bring up the fact that Bane almost made an appearance on Clone Wars, and then both George Lucas and Filoni were like, hey, maybe let's not do this. So like, it's man, you're right, Adrian. They don't deserve it. They don't deserve
it.
Let
Disney lose their fan base when all those old white men pass away.
Yeah,
let the fan base
sucks, man. Because we just have so much like great stuff, And maybe what the answer is if you're gonna keep streaming, like doing stuff on streaming services, just do animation. Don't touch live action. Don't even hint at live action, because I don't even want to see a live action Bane unless it's in a movie now, because I just know that we're gonna have to go through this shit all over again. Because as perfect as it's gonna, as they can do it exactly the way they do it in the books, then why I could have just gone and read the book. I could have just gone and read the book. Well, what did this do? I can go watch a fan film. Like what? Why do we need that when we already have that story told? We had a whole new story to tell. Skeleton's Cruises and give a whole new cast of characters and stories for us to indulge in. Like, don't you remember? So I think they did like the worst things about what got them into Star Wars in the first place, right? Like that kind of grandiose, like, oh, what is this? Oh, the prequels. Oh, the Jedi. There's Jedi everywhere. Like all of those things. Like why did we lose that when we're getting it in other things? Because it's the same. It's same but different, at least in my eyes. When we're going to all these different timelines, it's new stories. Why are we so concerned with if Anakin is whatever? His story is still his story. He still will go on to murder a lot of people. Like a lot of people. His legacy isn't tarnished by the fact that the Acolyte had Force babies in it that we didn't even get the explanation for, and we'll probably never get the explanation for, because of like this. So all the things that they're complaining about will never get fixed because some executive decided nope, can't do it, despite all of the other creatives and all the other people that we love who are creating Star Wars stories said, Leslie Headland, killing it, dude, good job, let's keep this rolling. And because of review bombing and all this other stuff, now we don't get it. And I just don't think that we deserve, like, as a fandom at this point, more live action content on Disney Plus. If you're not going to give it the attention it deserves, just give us a 13 episode animated series, because that's easier and more cost effective. If that's what you're worried about, easier, more cost effective. Give me more Bad Batch level animation, because it seems like that's the only thing that matters to them.
And one of the most defeated things I said last night about the whole thing was the fact that Star Wars is going to be boring again. It's going to be safe. It's going to be boring. one of the biggest arguments that me and Katie had in our own GUA chat, because of course all of our friends want to be the devil's advocate. They want to be like, hey, we're gonna show you the facts and tell you this, tell you that. The biggest thing
The budget. Yes, we get the budget. I promise. We get the budget.
The biggest thing for us is that the Acolyte was a risk. It was, hey, let's do something different, which it wasn't all that different. Let's be completely honest.
It really wasn't.
It was in the universe. It was lightsabers. It was Jedi. It was Sith.
Yeah.
It was Force users. It was all of the same thing that is in everything else Star Wars related. And it just looked beautiful in my mind. And the fact that I can't get that because people are just like, oh, I don't want that. Like, it hurts, you know, the fact that, you know, we're talking about only getting animation. I guess I can be excited for Visions. Maybe.
Yeah.
But
yeah. Okay. Here's my issue. I love Visions. How many of these motherfuckers have even watched Visions?
Mm-hmm.
Not a lot of them, because no one I talk to in Star Wars in real life, outside of like, you know, like this, you know, community here, has seen Visions, but yet we're still getting more of it. So like viewership is not an issue. Gathering all of these people all across everywhere is not an easy thing to do, but they're willing to do that, but not willing to like give other like the live action things that are taking those chances the same shot. I just doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And because I tried to like compare it yesterday to the Clone Wars movie. And that not in like a budget sense, but like, hey, this was a risk. And you know what? George Lucas actually took this risk. And it was one of the worst received things up until the Acolyte and the sequel films, probably.
I think the one post that I saw had a 19% rotten score on Tomatoes and a 40% audience score was the movie. And I remember seeing that at a midnight release with my dad. My dad fell asleep and I watched it and I thought, if this is what the future of Star Wars is, let's fucking go. And I got freaking how many seasons? 6 seasons? 7 seasons?
7 seasons.
7 seasons of Clone Wars, 4 seasons of Rebels, Bad Batch. Like, these shows, like, there's still people to this day that have like polar opposite ideas about Clone Wars and Rebels. Oh, I don't like the animation of this one. This one's a little clunky. I don't like watching the Jar Jar episodes and the clone. Like, there's so many takes on something that Disney was like, hey, let's keep this going. Ultimately, I think that kind of decision, though, I will be my own devil's advocate here, is the stupid argument of, oh, it's animated, it's for kids, let's give the kids something to watch.
George Lucas says that Star Wars is for 12-year-olds. Tap sign. And I know that's not what you're saying, but like that's what I would say to those like, and it's all for kids, man. It's all for kids, except for the Acolyte. The Acolyte and the Andor are probably at least likely to be for kids. And only one of them is continuing to go because one of them is like, I'm not saying it's boring, but like the story is boring, man. And it only exists because Rogue One was so good, right? Like it's this thing, then it's A New Hope, Rogue One, and then Andor, right? It's easy to tell this story in Andor. It's so easy to say the Empire is bad, and if you're not doing your part, shame on you. Pick up a brick and throw it at the Nazis. That's such an easy story to tell. And like you said, Clay, at some point we gotta admit that that's gonna be boring if that's all we're gonna be doing for the next whatever years. Even the heir to the Empire stuff, I'm not even that excited about, man. We saw Luke's story finish. If I want Luke Skywalker stuff, plenty of great comics that will probably be anything better than we get in animation or in live action because those stories are already so good. So why do you want to just stay? Why do you want to stay here in this era and only care about this era?
I will always share this meme with anybody and everybody that complains about Star
Yes.
Wars. I love this interview. I
Mm.
repost it every single time I see it on Instagram, on TikTok. I love just the way Freddie said what he had to say. Star Wars is for fucking kids. The prequels were for fucking kids, and the sequels were for fucking kids. It's so good. And for me, in this whole decision, I'm gonna be hyperbolic. I'm probably gonna be negative until I don't know when. You know, I go back to SBub's comment here on YouTube. I've been on the I don't believe these movies or shows exist or will be made until I am sitting down watching it boat for years now. This is I don't know how many of our listeners have listened to the GUA for I don't know how long. I used to be on the DC show. And I kind of got kicked off the DC show because I was in this boat for DC movies. I was just like, hey, you know what? Everything is kind of in limbo. This sucks. I hate it here. I want DC movies. And I didn't get them. And so I came to another franchise that I absolutely love. And now Disney is like, hey, Clay, I personally want to attack you over and over and over again. And this is what I get for it. Like, I hate it here. This timeline sucks.
I told when it initially happened, I told somebody that if you're on the side of Elon Musk and just about anything, you're probably wrong. And he's over here tweeting that he's happy that like this stuff is happening. So like if that's the camp you want to be in, hey, more power to you, man. More power to you. Be in that camp. Have fun with all of these just, I think, bad people who don't care about me as a person of color, who don't care about you, Katie, as a woman. Like, there's just so much of like that part of the fandom that I don't understand why we're catering to. Because imagine if they just keep doing this, how much content. Because even if you keep making it, even if you keep making it, and you still have all these grifters, that's still Star Wars going. That's what are we going to be talking about? What are these people going to be talking about once all of these shows get canceled? What are they going to be talking about? Because you know they're not reading the books. You know they're not reading the comics of the High Republic and all these things. And we know that because they don't know their own EU Legends material that they seem to cling so hard onto. So we're going to get bored, but they're going to get bored too because they're not going to have anything to talk about because they hated everything new that came out. And so we're just going to get what is the Skywalkers doing this week on in between the movies.
It's only a matter of time before they remake 4, 5, and 6. I still believe it. It's going to get so bad. They're like, oh, this is the only thing that we can cater to now. Let's do it.
Yep. All right, y'all. Well, I think that's about it on the Acolyte that we can talk about. I don't want to talk in circles about it. We've talked for an hour.
Yeah. No, you're right. It's been an hour of me being angry, and now I want to go play Star Wars Outlaws. Yeah, to be happy again.
All right. Well, Adrian, is that your?
Yeah, I didn't read
if you were joining us for the review or not. Sorry.
Yeah, I haven't done the review, but I'm excited to hear your thoughts on it once I'm caught up because like a normal person, I wait until I make my opinions on things, and I don't just say oh that's bad because reasons. But no, it's been a really good time. I didn't even make any videos about like this stuff because I just knew that it would just take me a long time to like get out and articulate. So I appreciate you guys letting me come on and vent a little bit because my wife and I are angry, but it's just us here as Star Wars fans. So it's been really great, and we appreciate you guys so much. And thanks for letting me come on.
Yeah, as always, you're always welcome back. So tell us where they can find you.
Yeah, you can find me primarily on Instagram and TikTok these days at SuperReese93, right there-ish, and then on But Why Though, where I do a lot of the Star Wars writing for them. So I'll have some Outlaw pieces coming out here in the coming weeks, and I'll probably be the one reviewing Skeleton Crew as well. So you can expect those from me over there at butwhythough.net.
Awesome sauce. Thanks, Adrian. Talk to you later.
All right. Yeah, beam me out.
I wasn't sure if you were doing it or if I was doing it.
Well, we messed up when I was joining, so I didn't want to mess that up again. So yeah, now that we are done talking about the Acolyte, I want to go ahead and also say thank you to everybody who decided to join us on this conversation over at
Yes.
YouTube. Listeners of the podcast, you can always join us every single Wednesday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Mostly, there, some things do come up, and we have to switch that time around. But every single week, Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Right now, we are going to be reviewing Edge of Balance Volume 3 in the High Republic era. Of course, this is a part of Phase 3, or Wave 3, Phase 3. I'm pretty sure it's Phase
3.
Phase 3 of the High Republic, which is, of course, the ending of the High Republic
Publishing initiative,
if you will. So, even that even makes me sad. It's the ending. We are getting the ending next year. Well, no. 26? Beginning of 26.
Nope, next year.
Is it next year? Nope, it's next year. Crap.
Summer 2025.
So we are no longer going to be in the High Republic by the end of next year, and it's super sad. And this is probably one things that saved my love and rekindled my passion for Star Wars. But enough of all the sadness.
Hey, we'll always have books.
We will.
You can't take my physical copy from me.
I do get a lot of the audiobooks though, so that's kind of scary.
Yes.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and jump into this review, Katie. This, of course, is the very interesting kind of avenue that the High Republic took with making mangas. Of course, I wouldn't necessarily call this a manga because it's not backwards. It is in black and white, but it's a Star Wars comic in black and white that is very much in the same vein as manga. So, Katie, you want to go ahead and open us up with this rendition of Edge of Balance?
Yes. So this volume of Edge of Balance is by Shima Shinya and Daniel Jose Older, with art by Mizuki, and I'm going to butcher this, I'm really sorry, Sakakibara. Again, I apologize. But we head back with our main character, Lily, as well as we get Arkoff and Sav involved. Those are kind of our main trio, along with two younglings, a Chagruta and then a human male that I can't remember the names of. They're in the back of the book.
They are
Vivnia
Nima
and Nima.
Vivnia. Vivnia and Nima. Yeah.
Yes. But our main character is Lily. And so this takes place, I want to say, I don't exactly know where it takes place at in like the rest of the books. I'm going to say it takes place Do you know?
I was going to say, due to the fact that in this book, we see what is her name? Master
Aslan?
No. Master starts with a Z.
Yoda?
No. What is her name? The one that likes bombs.
Sav.
Zav. Yes. Master Zav flies to a separate planet and then waits until they are part of the occlusion zone, being engulfed by the inclusion zone. We know that due to some of the findings of the Council and other Jedi Knights, that we have found a way inside the occlusion zone. This tells me that it might be even before all of that. So I think it might be like the beginning.
That's what I was going to say too.
It really feels that way.
Maybe like right after Eye of Darkness, because they're tracking it because the moon that she flies to is in orbit around Banshee. and
Yes.
the moon goes in and out of the occlusion zone.
And they also mention the Guardian protocols. And I have an opinion on Yoda's opinion of Lily with the Guardian protocols, and we'll talk about that later. But they mentioned the Guardian protocols, and it feels very fresh in this book.
Yeah.
So it feels like, hey, this was probably just assigned. So kind of, I would probably say even this might take place during the events. Oh, well, I don't know. No. So Aslan and Yoda are part of this. We see Wreath also being a part of this as well. I take that back. This might be right before Wreath's book that is coming out next month.
It might be because they talk about the blight.
Yeah, they talk about the blight, and I know that like Lily and her ragtag group, because even Viv, Nia, and Nima were a part of volume 1 and 2. They were just very, very little. They were still very little, very, the start of their training and everything. They still had like the safety training lightsabers back then as well. And I think they mentioned the fact that they still have them, but they could be getting upgrades soon in this book. But this book has always kind of felt, what's the right word? Outside of everything else that we're reading. And this is kind of the first time that I feel like, okay, this is very connective to the story that we are currently reading in the rest of Wave 3. And I really liked that part. This felt like, hey, whereas the other ones felt like, hey, this is all going on during Waves 1 and 2. And this Edge of Balance is kind of like, hey, this is kind of being affected, but not really. This is only a story about this particular Jedi. Whereas this is still pushing the narrative of Wave 3 as a whole. So that's why I feel like this one is a little bit more different, and why this, I think, is kind of stapled into the timeline that we're currently reading, which is going to be before the next teen novel. I think the Wreath Silas book is a teen novel. So
yes, the young adult book.
Yeah.
It might be before Temptation of the Force. Like
that would
thinking
also
about
make
it,
sense.
but I think it's definitely after the last young adult book.
So
whatever that name was. Defy the Storm.
Yes, Defy the Storm. I believe Defy the Storm ended with Wreath and Aslan. And he was kind of in charge of like watching over him. So I think that does make sense that this might be before Temptation, but after Defy.
Right. So this is probably my favorite of the Edge of Balance books.
Yes. I love this one. Gonna go ahead and skip ahead, but we will talk about it when it happens. I got a little emotional with Aslan, surprisingly.
Right?
Like as somebody, as not as somebody, but reading about a character that we still, for some reason, know hardly anything about, getting these few pages with Aslan felt so emotional, so powerful. I really dug this. Learning, and again, I'm kind of showing my hand here. I ordered it. It's right there on my bookshelf. I still haven't read Precedent. I haven't read the one before this.
I was going to ask you a question.
Which does, I believe, show that Arkov is in fact the master of Aslan.
See, I don't remember that. And I was going to try to read Precedent, and I did not have time to read
I
it.
was supposed to read it right after work today, and then Abby was like, let's go out to eat. And I was like, I'm hungry. So I just, like, my stomach was thinking for me. So I didn't have time to read it. I am probably going to read it immediately after I edit the podcast tonight. But I remember Archov was supposed to be a big part of that book, and I know that it was a part of Wave or Phase 2, which is set in the past. And I know Aslan was introduced in Wave 2. So I was like, I connected the dots myself, and I was like, oh, this is probably something everybody else knows, but I'm finding out right here, right now. Cool, whatever. But like,
I don't remember that happening. I know they were friends. I did not realize that Archov was Athlenrill's master.
there is so much in Archov's silence in this book. It's so good.
It is.
Which I absolutely love about black and white comics, because when you read a comic, you're colors, it pops, big splash page, all of these different things. The one thing for me personally, when it comes to black and white comics, especially mangas, because it's sometimes smaller detail instead of like big panels and stuff, you have to pay more attention. You have to really look at things. And with things like as subtle as when Lily is talking to Archov and you see his pupils like freaking dilate really small because he's like surprised, and it's just like some of these funny things that happen. But also when Lily is talking to another member of the group, she's like, oh, well, I'm really worried about Archov, and he's just stoically standing there off to the side contemplating about things. And it just feels so intense, and I actually really, really dig it. But this book, again, being a part of the timeline where we're currently at, we know about the Blight. We know the Dringir have returned. This is the first time that Lily and her ragtag group of individuals are seeing that happen. They've dealt with the Dringir head on before. So they are very intensely like, oh crap, like what's going to happen now? But it starts off as like this weird Scooby-Doo episode, because like we are getting resurrections of the citizens
Zombies.
of Banshee. Yeah, like tree zombies, wood zombies. And I almost thought that her Padawan was going to be a part of that group.
I know. I would have lost my shit.
And I thought, I was like, oh crap, that's so heavy. And I really love the way Lily has learned, hey, I have always been so impacted by like being over prepared or not prepared enough, or like focusing on the wrong things. I'm going to live in the now. When things happen, that's when I need to react. And she's learned to be mindful and peaceful with her time as the protector of Banshee. And I really dig that growth in her character. So I really dig, I really love that. But when the Dringir appear, Aslan is a part of that group at this point. Yoda is there. And they're like, oh crap, Dringir, let's do something about it. And Lily's like, hold on. There's no malicious intent. There's nobody trying to kill us. We're fine. Did you get it?
No. Sorry.
It's all good. It's all good. But there's no malicious intent. But I also love the little tidbits that we're getting from Aslan, because we know that he fell to the dark side, right? And in my mind, and I don't know how you feel about this. So as far as Sith, dark side users, all of these things, the precedent kind of comes to Anakin. Anakin fell to the dark side. He became Darth Vader. He was the most malicious, evil thing in Star Wars. And then he saved his son and boom, redeemed himself, right? But the dark side holds so much weight. And like, oh, you're evil now. Like, people were like, there's so many people still on the wrong side of thinking that Aslan is like this evil individual. And even Yoda was like, hey, he can still be useful, blah, blah. The decisions that Aslan makes in this book is what got me emotional. Because this is a guy that felt forced. I have to go to the dark side to save the ones that I love. The ones that I love are the Jedi. The ones that I love, my master, my friends, all of these things. He even says, like, I should have died a long time ago. Like, that's just the way things go. But I have been held by fear. And he lives by fear. And of course, that's something that the dark side holds over you. And like, again, I haven't read precedent, so I don't know how this equates to that. And I don't even know if they do. But there's a moment where Aslan, of course, because he has literally no eyeballs, you see how he, quote unquote, remembers Arkov. And it's like this, like, zombie-esque Drengear amalgamation of a Wookiee. And it's like, holy crap, dude, like, chill out. Like, what happened? And he even says, I just remember memories. And I'm like, oh snap, what happened? Like why is he remembering this? But there does finally become a moment after that whole conversation where he says, I can finally see you. And you see what he can see, and it's Arkov, like in his prime or whatever. So I really dig these moments, and I know we're focusing on Aslan, but like, I feel like there's a really good progression with his character, and like getting to learn something about him. I really dug that.
Yeah, it was really nice to finally feel like we were getting something from Aslan, and Aslan isn't just a secret anymore. Because even in precedent, he feels like a secret. And it's like, okay, the Jedi are ashamed that he kind of went crazy because he saw the Nameless and he's afraid for his life. Like, he ended up in a sanatorium. That's like where he's at in precedent.
Yeah.
So like getting to see him and get that growth and go, okay, we're stepping into the light a little bit. We're finally learning more about him. Awesome. I loved it. Lily, I feel really good about as a character now. Like, she's felt a little boring the first 2 volumes, but like I'm finally seeing her as the character I think that she was always meant to be. And yeah, I love Arkov. I love the artwork with Arkov. I don't think this has done the best justice to a Wookiee character. You get a lot of interpretations in his face, yes. The artwork is always phenomenal. I don't feel like I'm getting enough from Arkov, though. But maybe that's because I'm a word person. I enjoy words.
But one thing that we kind of knew from, I believe, Volume 1 and Volume 2...
Arkov doesn't say a lot.
He's a stoic character. And that was the really big thing. And I think just like... And I say just like, but I feel like Chewie is kind of the opposite. Like, I should say more like Burry. Arkov is like Burry. When Burry says something, it's worth saying. Like, he doesn't just say things just to say things. And it's because of his empathy towards just the universe, you know? And I think with Arkov right now, I think you're right. I think that there needs to be something more with this character. Because, yes, it's fine and dandy that he can be the stoic, doesn't say much type of master. But when you're implying so much history and so much connection with Aslan and all of this other stuff, like, almost feels like, hey, we just needed a Wookiee a part of this initiative, and we'll make it this character. You know, like kind of like a checklist. And I don't want Arcov to be like that, because I feel like there's something there. And I want to know more of that.
Yes, Sam. We are getting at least 2 more volumes. So we're getting Edge of Balance Premonition and Edge of Balance Volume 4. So at least we're getting a couple more, because the story here is definitely left unfinished. Well, I don't want to hit too much on the story because it's very short.
Yes.
It's very quick read. But what did you think about the creature that could use the Force on Aston Band, the
Yes,
moon of Banshee?
Zimtok. Zimtok was a from what it looked like, a 3-eyed lemur that could use the Force. I think it's cool. I think that we need to see more of this in Star Wars. We don't see a lot of it. There's only, so much of, those things that happen. My mind immediately goes to, what are the creatures called in
Yasamri?
Yes, the ones that negate the Force in the I can't remember the trilogy.
Legends? Heir to the Empire.
Heir to the Empire. Yes, Heir to the Empire trilogy. But yeah, those are the creatures that immediately come to mind. And of course, with the Nameless, we know that they feed off of the Force. So there's many characters or creatures, should I say, that are connected to the Force in Star Wars. Seeing this one actually use the Force, and it was very subtle. I had to look at the page twice before I finally realized oh, that's what happened. And then you get reaffirmed by the Nihil being like, hey, that thing just used the Force, you're like, okay. So I dig it. I like it. I want to see more of it though.
Yeah.
For sure.
It'll be interesting to see what we get for the future. So let's go to Amazon, because I gotta know when things are gonna come out, and I just don't trust anything other than Amazon now.
Well, it does
after last week.
Say at the end of this volume, which I really did appreciate. They're like, oh, to be continued in Edge of Balance 4, and I was like, yes, we're getting more. But I think I already knew that. I just forgot.
Yes, so Edge of Balance Volume 4 is due out April 22nd, 2025. And then Premonition is due out April 8th, 2025. I imagine that's going to change. Those are going to shift.
Probably, yeah.
So yeah, so those are the current release dates. So yeah, I really enjoyed this one. Like I said, probably my favorite of what we've gotten.
Yes,
I'm going to say that definitely my favorite.
I will 100% agree. Master, I always forget her name. Remind me again.
Sav.
Zav. Yes, Zav. Right? Z.
Sav.
Sav. S. I love her energy because, of course, we got to see a little insight of her as a child in Adventures. Seeing that kind of very childlike mind still in her, I think is she also looks like a stoic badass, just with her big hat,
the disc helmet thing,
the disc helmet, the mask, the cloak. She looks like a very stoic individual, but then is all she I feel like she's a little crazy.
Yes.
It might also be because of the age, just we've seen how Yoda ends up, right? So and this is the only story beat I'll say, is she lands on the moon, and she just straight up blows up her own ship. And the droid is like, "What did you just do?" And they're like, "Well, I I can't just let them know that we're here."
Yes.
And the droid's like, "How the hell are we getting back?" She's like, "Oh, we'll just steal one of their ships. You know,
I loved it. It
we're
was
just gonna
so
steal
good.
another one. It's fine." I love how the droid is like, "Is that the real reasoning, or do you just like blowing things up?" And she was like, "Why can't it be both?" You know? So I love her. She's awesome. But yeah, this was such a great story. I need those dates to shift a little bit because I feel like I need more of this story now that I am actually really getting into it. Yeah, and I would love to see something separate with Arkoff to learn a little bit more about his character and go a little bit more in depth with that.
For sure. All right, y'all. Well, Clay, where can they find you? As we both
Yes.
yawn.
Yes. You can find me, of course, at Fanboy Clay on Twitter, on Threads, and any and all social media. So go check me out on all of those. Currently, Jake and I are going to be reviewing some of Power Rangers Turbo over at Ranger Alliance. So go check that out as well. We got a little tease for the new Power Rangers comics, so we're gonna be excited about that. And yeah, that's mainly it on Twitter. I'm just posting a lot of Marvel Snap content. It's something that I'm really enjoying doing. My wife Abby, being the marketing genius that she is helping me create some amazing uh, uh, photos for all of my deck guides and all of that. So it's really, really fun. It's content that I'm actually enjoying to do. And I start a new job. So when it comes to comics, reading, content in general, I might be a little behind on things in the first month. So please be diligent of that when it comes to conversations online, because I may not have a clue what you're talking about. But yeah, really excited about the new job, and hopefully I no longer have to do any manual labor, thankfully.
Huzzah. All right, y'all. And you can find me on most social media platforms. It is at Slice of Katie. This show you can find on Twitter at Star Wars Lens the 8. In the war is very important. Don't forget it. Remember, you can always send us questions. Let us know how you're feeling. How are you feeling about the cancellation of the Acolyte? Please tell us. We really would like to share y'all's thoughts. So yeah. Next week we're going to be diving back into the High Republic with Young Jedi Adventures Season 2 Part 1. So with that, I want to wish everyone a great day or night, whatever time of day you are listening or watching, and we will see y'all next time. May the Force be with you.